Beep to me, beep, 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 beep. Morning. All that's new from the jester. How are we? Still bloody cold. Still freezing. Yesterday, I did a video about how an organisation can get, this crap out of its system, right? The stuff we're dealing with every day. So today I thought we'd do something different. Oh, I chat. Right now. So, first things first, buy me a coffee if you can. Join the Warrior Teacher Programme. Next cohort's probably going to be April, because the other cohort's sort of almost there. So if you haven't yet and you want to enroll in January and start in February, links are in the doobries. Now, as well as the links being in the doobries, and this is important, I thought we'd do a little bit of what the type of thing that you might do, for example, if one was a warrior teacher. Okay? So, stop, pause, put me on pause, right? Have a look at the description, which is, of course, the doobries, right? Have a look at the description, and in the description is a link to the Substack that goes with this particular little rant, right? Go and read the Substack first before watching the video. Read the Substack first before watching the video. Because if you've come here via the Substack, you've already read the Substack before watching the video. Go and read it, right? And give some thought to the stuff that I put in quotes. And see whether or not you see what I see. There's something V for Vendetta about that as well. If you see what I see, if you feel what I feel, isn't there some speech that V gives about this, overarching totalitarian control system in which he finds himself living? And if you haven't seen it, why not? Right, V for Vendetta, get watching it. It's the dominoes. Right, okay. So go and have a look. Stop, pause, go and read the description. And then come back, because I'm going to take you through the article that prompted me to do this strange little exercise, and hope that you'll play along. So there was an article in The Guardian from Harriet Sherwood, the arts and culture correspondent, who, bizarrely enough, is very quiet on Twitter, hasn't said anything in 2019, which is a bit odd for an arts and culture correspondent, where they not being involved in the milieu of the Twittoids, right? Out there with their fang teeth, having a go at folk, which is what the Twittoids is all about. So let's have a look and see. Now, she's writing about the fact that muddled policies putting UK's lead in creative industries at risk, Piers warn. Not Piers Morgan, Piers, P-W-R-S, right? The report criticised indifference to sector's potential and calls for new approach to address skills shortages, okay? So we're talking here about the culture sector. It says the UK risks losing its leading position in the creative industries in the face of international competition, rapid technological change, and the government's indifference to the sector's potential. Members of the House of Lords have warned. So they've been taking a look at it, and they think, hang on a minute, we're not paying enough attention to this, right? The creative industries should sit at the heart of the UK's economic growth plan, says a report by the Lords Communication Committee. But it warns of missed opportunities and failure among senior government figures to recognise the sector's commercial potential. Right, okay. The creative sector is huge, right? Massive, massive in terms of generating money. Rightly so. Particularly, we're very good at computings, games, things like that. We also used to be very good at film, particularly when we make films that are very, very peculiarly British, like Brastoff and Calendar Girls and Educating Rita, and we have a way of doing those types of films that are terribly good. So they tend to get great international acclaim. But there's much more to it than that. There's art, literature. The creative industries are a massive boon to the UK. Sadly, you and I know that the creative industries are probably the single most infected sector when it comes to wokeism and all the crap that comes with gender and BLM and all the usual kerfuffle, right? Okay, so viewing this through a critical lens and a critical lens, as I'm thinking, well, what the hell does this mean? What's going on in the background? And really, the lens of a warrior teacher who is alert to any infection by wokeism. I'm quite interested to know what they think is going on. So what she next says in this particular article is school children should be encouraged to combine study of arts and creative subjects with science and technology to meet the needs of a fast-growing sector, says the report. That's a problem, right? Okay. Now, many people might be able to do that, but at the far end of the artist, the idea of the artist, think, Mozart, think Picasso, think Orson Welles, think Stanley Kubrick, you know. You have people who were auteurs or tremendously good at what they do, phenomenally good at what they do. And these people were quite often able to do both technology and art at the same time. Orson Welles, notoriously difficult to work with because of his precision. Same goes for Stanley Kubrick. But when you get to other areas of art, for example, Picasso and Mozart, then these folk tended to be a little bit, I'm not doing the tech, I just want to do the art, right? So the idea that people can do both is an interesting one, but at the sort of overlap, the non-overlap of the bell curve, the temperaments of artists tend to be massively different from the temperament of engineers. So the call here is really for people who are in the middle to do both, because the ones at the either end are unlikely to do so. It just simply won't be in their temperament. I think that's a fascinating thing to begin with, right? So the UK's creative industries, she continues, are an economic powerhouse and have been a huge success story. This was said by Tina Sowell, the committee's chair in the House of Lords. But the fundamentals that underpin our success are changing and rivals are catching up. The government's failure to grasp both the opportunities and risks is baffling. In the UK, we're seeing muddled policies, barrier to success, and indifferent to the sector's potential. Well, are we? Or is the sector just difficult to cope with right now because they're all mad? They've all gone mad. Look at what's happening in museums. Putting up, what do they call them? Displays of chest binders. And not, or saying that the word mummy, when used to describe a wrapped up body from Egypt, is an offensive word. They're all wrapped up in wokeism. So go to the theatre and watching the non-binary Joan of Arc. Twats, right? Non-binary Joan of Arc. Oh, God. Right, okay. All that sort of rubbish. So, they've obviously suffered, she says, because of the pandemic, but blah, blah, blah. She goes on to give some figures. It's true. They're massively important to what's going on. But the report identifies skills shortages among young people and a failure by careers advisors to flag up opportunities in the sectors. Employers are increasingly calling for a blend of creative and digital skills. Right, now that's a different thing. So you talk about technology, talk about digital. Digital is one element of technology. And I think, from what I can gather, young people embrace the idea that you can be creative with digital. If you look at the people that are developing things for games and doing game design, which is a huge sector in the UK. And remember, the games industry is worth more than the music and film industry combined. Right, so that's a very important sector for us. The increasing digitalisation, that's going on. But there's a certain element of this I've got a problem with, which is why I put the little Substack up, so you can have a look and see whether you see what I see, as V would say. It calls on the Department for Education to encourage students to learn a blend of creative and digital skills, improve careers guidance, reverse the decline in children studying design and technology, change lazy rhetoric about low-value art courses, and make apprenticeships work better for small and medium-sized enterprises in the creative industry. What do they mean by change lazy rhetoric about low-value art courses? What do they mean by that? UK Interactive Entertainment, a body that represents the gaming sector, here I see, told a committee that remote working had increased the mobility of the workforce, and UK firms were increasingly fighting to secure talent against international competitors. You bet. Gosh, the market, eh? So, there's various things that are mentioned. Intellectual property law, there's a problem with that. That needs a complete overhaul. And Caroline Norbury, the chief executive of Creative UK, which supports the sector, said financial support for the creative industries is a vital investment to unleash economic growth, accelerate innovation, underpin the UK's global soft power, and provide social and well-being benefits to communities across the country. Now, what's interesting is, even if you're working for a game company, the likelihood that your best programmer is writing the text that the characters in the game say. No, pretty low, right? Different skill sets, different ways of thinking, different mindsets. The UK is bursting with creative brilliance, which we are. Now, all of this is well and good, right? But this is exactly the sort of thing that we have to be very careful of. As I said in one of these the other day, I was in a meeting when somebody said, we're coming to queer STEM. Do you remember I said that? So I put a few little things in that Substack that I think are red flags, right? They give me a bit of a, ooh, careful with that one, right? So what we've got to be aware of is that what doesn't happen is that the art sector, which is a very important sector, and the creative sector, which is a very important sector, which are now so infected with wokeism and this mad nonsense that we're seeing because they've let the template be laid across them so badly by these lunatics, is that they will use any and all things to advance their activist agenda, and they will do so by bastardizing and parasitizing whatever it is they sit across. So they're doing the same with the arts and cultures. So what we have to be very careful of is that they'll start to dictate how things are done. So you can end up with a creative industry, which is unfortunately under the heel of the equity wallers, right? Well, how are we going to excel if they want equity? How can the creative industry excel if we end up with people that are saying, oh, actually, we've got to go for equity. We want 50% of this and 10% of that and 5% of that. When creativity is often about flights of fancy. Oh, I'm off, away with the fairies. And they come up with something wonderful that we can all enjoy, the tremendous ability of art and cinema and film and all that stuff that comes with it, to create lush worlds to explore that are just out of people's imaginations. I mean, imagine that being constrained by the likes of equity wallers, right? Or EDI, right? Okay, the die, actually die, as I always say. So I've looked to see whether or not I think there's something hidden in this that is a little bit, how's your father? And there isn't, but I think that the way that they put it means it's open to misinterpretation, it's open to be bastardised by these people. And if the House of Lords are going to produce an important report about the biggest sector that we've got in this country, I think the report should start with, please ensure that we get rid of, which was what I covered in my video yesterday. All right? So yes, I think the humanities civilise us and STEM civilises the world, but that's just me, right? So I would say that what we need to do is to make sure that if the art sector is going to move forward, that they need to clean house. They need to clean house and they need to do it almost immediately because they are in a terrible state. I was yesterday speaking to a theatre director, a very talented man that I know, over drinks. He can't speak. He can't speak because these nutters have got their hands on everything, right? These woke nutters, right? So that's what I think is the most important lesson I take from this. And I hope that you've read the Substack. See what you can see in between the lines. What are they asking for? If they're talking about, well, we need to put art and science together, which they've been trying to do. They came up with STEM is science, technology, engineering and maths, and some wag came up with STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, arts and maths. Oh, get in the bin, right? We need to preserve the purity of STEM from the madness of the artistic. And likewise, we need to protect the purity of the art from the absolute restriction of, for example, the scientific process, which is designed to be error-seeking. So, what do you want to do, folks? Because you can't do both. Those two things are like, oil and water in some ways, but with collaborative endeavours, people can come together. But they can only come together and do it if we get rid of the collectivist ideas that are drawing the arts world into a miasma of bullshit. Woke films, woke books, woke television, woke painting, woke everything, right? That's what the problem's got to be gone before. So there's no point in us investing in what is the most captured sector unless the captured sector can clean house. And I think the government probably know that. Anyway, see what you think. Read the Substack. I'll see you later. Just right.